It's 5:30 p.m. Present is Commissioner Pisano.
Conley.
Commissioner Zace.
Chief Rude.
Very good. We have not received any notice of recording, although I think I have my screen set to record this meeting.
Yep, I see recording.
There is no public comment. We have on the agenda a report of recommendations for hiring from the chief. Chief, do you want to take it over?
Sure. We've advertised for firefighter paramedics. We've received 2 applications. We've interviewed them with myself, Union President Clark, Commissioner Conley, and Lieutenant Pouliot. The 2 applicants that we interviewed were Eric Kenzel. He's a Centerville resident and currently a full-time firefighter in Sandwich, and a Scott Melanson, who's a full-time firefighter paramedic in Falmouth and a resident of Falmouth. Both of them interviewed very well. Both of them are academy trained full-time paramedics, and I'm recommending both of them for hire. Both applications were sent to all 3 commissioners. Any questions?
Just quick comment, if I may, Chief.
Sure.
I got to tell you guys, I was very impressed with both gentlemen, Scott and Eric. You know, seemed like good, hardworking guys. Really community first type guys. So I was very impressed with both of them. 0 reservations with either one of them.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I spoke to the chief earlier. I got that sense from him, Kevin. So I'm glad that the two people that are putting in applications are pass muster.
They're very good. You want me to go over really quick some of the features of them as employees?
I had an opportunity to look at their resumes already. The one submitted by Eric was originally in 2018. Is that right?
Yeah, he applied for a job about a year and a half ago when we hired firefighter Staggs. At the time, he had no fire training, and because of the backlog at the academy, it was going to cost us about $100,000 in coverage to hire him and cover him until he was trained. So unfortunately, we wanted to, but we couldn't interview him back then. He's currently academy trained, full-time Sandwich firefighter paramedic. He's got a bachelor's degree in
Safety studies.
Safety studies. He worked as a safety consultant, OSHA inspector, and not an inspector for OSHA, but he worked with corporations to make sure they're up to speed on OSHA standards, safety and procedural documentation and review. So I think that's his very background will be a real big plus for, especially with the new OSHA regulations we're required to observe. And then the other applicant, Scott Melanson, he's been a full-time firefighter paramedic in Falmouth for about 10 years. He's also got a background in as a mechanic and an HVAC tech. So again, some useful skills that we can use here as well.
Chief, the only other question I had is what information do you have about their availability in terms of timeline?
So I was just about,
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chief.
Both of them said they just wanted to work with their chief and make sure that they weren't leaving their organizations high and dry. So I think we're talking, standard 2 weeks or maybe a little more, given the pandemic that's going on. Their departments need them a little longer. They both want to work with their chiefs to make it a smooth transition for everybody.
Sure. Good. Okay. That was the only question I had. I was impressed with the resumes, and I'm glad to hear your feedback and Kevin's.
So the comment that I think it was Eric that then made about needing, he's going to be hired in Wareham. Was that Scott?
Hired in.
He was thinking of, he's applied for a job in Wareham. I have to go back now to see which application.
Oh, okay. So there was Eric Kenzel originally filled an application out about.
Oh, so that was because it was the old application, right?
Yeah. So okay. He worked for Wareham EMS for a year or so, I think, and then he got on Sandwich Fire and worked for them for the last year and a half, or a little over a year, I think.
Okay. All right.
So that was an old resume.
Yeah.
We're interviewing via online, and we used his old application with his brand new resume.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Is there any other question or discussion?
No, not from me.
Can I make a motion?
Please.
Motion that we approve the chief's request to hire these two candidates?
Second. All in favor? Pisano?
Conley?
Zace,
Chief, you got these two.
Good. Okay. As part of hiring these, we've got an administration, I guess, whole. I guess I'm the only one doing administration right here. I would like to promote Lieutenant Pouliot to the position of acting deputy chief. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Joe has been he's been a firefighter for Cotuit for, I think, almost 36 years. He's the mayor of Cotuit. He belongs. He's respected amongst everybody here. He's been our training officer for years. He's been a training officer for the county. He's been running the Firefighter 1-2 training program at the county level for many years as well. When I'm away, he has always taken my car and taken charge and been here 24/7 to maintain operations. Given the pandemic and what's going on, I desperately need help, and having him help me with administrative functions is going to be very important. So what I'd like is to put him in the acting deputy's position. I know we've got a district meeting at some point in time to approve budgets for that position, but in the meantime, I really need him to fulfill that role for us.
Chief, I have a question.
Yes.
Does the designation of being an acting deputy change in any way his compensation structure?
Yes, I would like to compensate him for what the average deputy on the Cape makes, and I'm looking at an average of about $115,000 a year. So, which is, I believe, less money than he made last year with his overtime and standard pay. So, I would also like his pay to be the $115,000 a year in the acting position. At some point in time, we'll need to bargain with him and come up with a contract and look a little more closely at that. But for the immediate future, I'd like to set it at that.
What, if any, issues does making or agreeing to or discussing that kind of a change have on the current budget, the current sort of warrants, et cetera, that are, voted on by the district last year?
The district votes on a appropriation for the department. So it sets an appropriation that you and the commissioners decide how we expend that money. You decide how many firefighters we hire, how many we promote. That's your discretion. The district just votes on the funding level for the department. The current, hold on 1 second, sorry.
Ray just joined us.
Ray, I'm just going to turn your video off. So it's just recording the video of the commissioners, all right? The current emergency orders that are coming from the governor give us the ability to spend what we need to spend going forward. It gives us the ability to continue with operations after July 1st if we can't have a district meeting. At this point in time, having an extra person on duty, which we need, is going to cost more money. But there's no way, given the pandemic and anticipated staffing issues, we're getting by with what was appropriated in last year's budget.
So that bulletin, I had a chance to read that, and I'm sure everyone else has. I've only just read it prior to the meeting. I understand what it's saying. We have to be careful. What it says is that any expenditure, any flexibility in spending has to be specifically related to, there's allowable expenditures and unallowable or disallowable things. And so we have to be I think, pretty clear about what is the district actually incurring in increased costs relative to specifically things that we're spending above and beyond the budget relative to COVID-19. Then, it doesn't appear to me, upon second third readings before this meeting that it's anything. So the documentation of I'm in support of of deputy chief. It doesn't make me feel comfortable that we can use this as sort of a blanket Band-Aid to say, oh, well, any budget overrun will be fine because of this. That may be the case, but I don't. It doesn't appear to me that that is absolutely something that I currently feel comfortable that we can just hang our hats on and say, hey, no problem, because of this bulletin, we're good.
Adam, can you folks hear me?
Yeah.
Is it okay if Ray speaks and addresses this since he's more up in this?
It's a relevant question for him.
Okay.
I think it is going to come down to the justification, the logic that we apply to the expenditures. I think right now it is undefined. I think the state, federal government, and everyone is trying to find their way. So I think that if in the collective judgment of the commissioners, this is an expenditure that is deemed necessary to sustain service to the community, I think we can make that case.
I don't disagree with you, Ray, but the logic of this position was exigent before the pandemic became manifested itself to the degree that it has. So I think that's a blurry area and a slippery slope. So I just think it's incumbent upon us to be very, very careful and clear about what we're doing and how we justify things.
Let's respond real quick. You're right. This deputy's position was something that was going to be proposed for the district meeting coming up for an FY21 funding. In the last week with this pandemic, it's become obvious to me, I don't have the administrative capacity to maintain operations by myself. I need help. There's a fairly good chance that in the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be out running calls too. We desperately need help and bodies to get this job done at administration.
No question.
Supplies.
No question
Yeah,
about that.
getting supplies and doing payroll and paying bills. And I desperately need Joe's help. So Lieutenant Pouliot's help. So I think that's a direct result of the pandemic and a direct response to deal with it. It's not this is not a permanent decision. This is an acting decision stated as such. So that's my justification for it. I think that fits in, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I know we need him, and we need the position. We need him. I just think, and I know this is on the recording. I just think that we got to be pretty careful about how we pitch this to the general public in general, and how we rationalize it and so forth. Just wanted to be on record saying that.
I don't disagree with anything you've raised, Adam. The variables that we were trying to address when we first promoted the idea of a deputy chief have simply been accelerated by the demands of this crisis. So instituting an acting position is very germane to responding to these emergency conditions. But in addition, it gives us as a benefit the opportunity to actually see how this position works for a couple of months before we take it to the voters for approval of a standing position. I don't think that with the addition of these two candidates that we just accepted and the notion of moving Joe to an acting deputy position gives us a way of looking at how the department might work over time, even absent this emergency. But we would not be promoting him to a deputy chief position ahead of an annual meeting, but for this emergency.
Well, let's dot every I and cross every T.
Right. I had written to Ray earlier after I also reviewed that document about the need to establish a, a specific account line
Yep.
for these
Yeah, I
kinds
saw
of
that.
expenditures, and that the Prudential Committee has to be able to weigh and approve going forward. That right now, my understanding of the chief's motion for this is that this would be potentially fall just under our cost, our likely cost overrun. We thought we had maybe dodged the bullet with the OIDs reporting back, but now with this circumstance going forward, it's very likely we're going to have a number of people out on OID off and on before the end of the fiscal year. We're gonna need some backfilling no matter what.
Yeah, no,
Just better management of resources, I think.
like I said, I'm in support of it. If there's a motion, I'm going to second it. When asked to vote, I'll vote for it. So that said, I just want to be beyond reproach.
No,
Well,
I agree. I think we can't afford to be cavalier about how we address this the fiscal dimension of this, because we have to be able to account for everything we do.
Right. So, what's the from the standpoint of meeting rules? What are we going to do?
Can I make a
We're
motion?
going to have this is where Kevin says, "I want to make a motion."
Can I make a motion?
Yes, go ahead.
My motion is that we accept the chief's recommendation to go forward with an assistant, a temporary, is that what we said? Temporary
Acting.
assistant chief.
Acting deputy chief.
Acting deputy chief.
Acting deputy chief, excuse me, acting deputy chief.
Second.
In favor? Well, wait, any further discussion? Absent further discussion, let's take the roll. Pisano, yes.
Conley, yes.
Zace, yes.
Carried. Chief, with this in place and Joe being moved to acting deputy chief, he will be moved to then a day shift position, is that correct?
That's correct. He'll be administrative during the day.
And we will be looking to realign schedule and teams to account for that, correct?
Correct. So the other part of this going forward is many of the fire chiefs have been talking about we're changing everything. We're changing the way we do business, and we're thinking outside the box. And I've had a conversation with the union today about going to a 3-shift model. So right now we have 4 shifts of 3 firefighters. We are looking at going to a 3-shift model. So there'll be 3 shifts of 4 firefighters. And there's 2 big reasons for that. The first big reason is that right now we have 4 shifts of 3 and maintain 3. So we use overtime to fill in vacancies for people on sick, vacation, IOD, whatever. As a result, any one firefighter on a regular basis works with all the other firefighters. So if one of us comes down with COVID-19, there's a fairly good chance within a week period they infect every one of us. So the idea, if we go to 3 shifts of 4, that we totally isolate shifts, and that we have a policy put in place that says at the end of a shift, that shift walks out one door, a new shift walks in another door, and they shall not overlap. They shall clean their hands, clean the station when they come in. And during that shift, we don't bring in standby. We don't have other shifts working overtime on that shift, other members, so that if one shift gets ill, there's a possibility that we just lose one shift and we don't lose the whole department. And then when this goes further down the road and we may possibly have multiple people out, making the most of our resources and trying to, have our firefighters commit, and they've committed to going this approach and working longer hours for us and for the community. So this distributes their workload amongst all of them. They end up, right now they work a 42-hour average work week. This will put them on a 56-hour work week. So it distributes the work over a greater period of time. Working the 3 shifts, they also work potentially, we're looking at a 48-hour model. So they work 48 hours and then have 4 days off and then work another 48 hours. That reduces by half the amount of times they walk into the station where they could bring it in. And also by half the amount of times they walk out where they could bring it back to their families. So it's got a lot of positives. Many of the district fire departments and town fire departments around the Cape are looking at doing the same thing. So I'd like to get this done ahead of time, and that's what we're looking to do. It's part of the model. Any questions on that?
There's a lot to unpack. So
It's a lot.
d-
Yeah.
does that mean there's more or less overtime potential for my little pea brain?
Yeah, good question. So what happens is right now they work a 42-hour work week. With the 56, they would be getting 14 hours of overtime per week per person. Mandatory. They'd be required to work it. If you add that up, I think it's 196 hours, I think, of guaranteed overtime every week. That is on par or lower than the typical overtime we currently spend. So it shouldn't affect the budget very much, if at all. But it also, it takes the overtime they're working anyways, spreads it amongst everybody and makes it a mandatory overtime is what it does. So it's not going to have a significant financial impact on the district.
All right.
And the union is open to this shift in model?
They're open to the shift model. What would happen is there would be a 4-person shift and we would maintain 3. So the first person that was out sick or on any shift wouldn't result in overtime. So overall, I'm not going to tell you that overtime is not going to go up in the next couple of months. It's more than likely going to go up, and it's going to probably go up significantly. And it's not because of the shift model. It's going to be because people have the potential to be sick and injured. So, but this model, I think, gives us the opportunity to possibly work a little longer without, everybody being affected and going out of business. And then once we're no longer doing social distancing and we're not trying to separate everybody as much, it gives us the ability to use what limited resources we have left more effectively.
Mhm.
It's a complicated model. I'm going to have an SOP drawn up by Monday, working with the union on that, and it'll more fully explain the details of it. But it's not something that's been done around here before. It's something kind of new.
I would say that experimenting with this kind of shift of model does fall within your authority. But I obviously appreciate you bringing it to the commissioners. We need to be able to be aware of it and voice whatever questions or concerns we have. I've been trying to get my head around what it would mean for part of the day. And I think it is worth the experiment and would want this to be on an experimental basis with regular reporting back to the commissioners about how it's working out.
Yeah, I mean, you track overtime anyway, so you're tracking all this stuff anyway. So
Yes.
I echo what Rick is saying. If you think that's the best thing to do, you and the other chiefs, then that's the best thing to do. But please keep us posted on how well it's going or not.
Oh, absolutely. I'll keep you posted on how it's going every week, or probably more often. Yeah, we honestly don't know what the coming weeks are going to bring. I wish I could tell you exactly what it's going to be, but I don't think anybody obviously really knows. So I guess what I'm going to need to do is enter into an MOU with the union. They're going to want a signed document saying that, this is how we're going to operate, that it's going to be in effect as long as the the declaration of emergencies in effect, and that we're going to review it on a regular basis, which is what we want to do anyways, to see how it works, how it affects overtime, how it affects safety. So I don't know if we want to make a motion to allow me to enter the MOU, or if it's something we want to come back for another Zoom meeting to review. I'm okay either way with what you guys want to do.
My
Well, if it-
inclination is to go forward with it right now, because we have the opportunity to get procedures in place ahead of the storm that we are anticipating.
Okay.
Yeah, Chief, I agree with Rick. I agree wholeheartedly. Let's get it in place. No need for us to vote on it, in my opinion. It's in your authority, and you're going to come and report back to us, and we can have that discussion at that point as appropriate.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that we need to vote on it, Chief.
Okay. All right. I will get that in place and forward it to you right away. And I will be keeping everybody up to speed. And at any point in time, if someone thinks we need a meeting, it seems like it's fairly easy to get this done this way. The next issue I wanted to bring up, and it's still relative to staffing, is call staff. We currently don't have any call staff. As things accelerate and, people, possibly from the community become available, what I'm looking for is the ability to recruit staff in a call position and use them as we need, without coming to the commissioners. So if, there's EMT classes going on right now at Four Cs. If, a month from now, we have a serious shortage and we need bodies to fill in, driving ambulances or whatever we have to get done. I guess I'm looking for the possibility of just recruiting people and putting them in roles that we see as safe and efficient to continue operations.
And these would be temporary positions in your mind?
Trying to think, our bylaws give us the ability to hire call people. I think would call them, I don't know what would call them. I guess would call them temporary call people. I'm not sure there's a real good category or to put them in, but it would be, would have to have something drawn up paperwork wise, saying they're temporary employees that we hire under the title of call EMT or call firefighter.
So I'm curious, Chief, and we spoke about this earlier. Why would you have to create something different if we already have the ability to bring in call firefighters?
We do have the ability to bring call. I believe that's typically done by a vote of the fire commissioners. So for me to hire a call firefighter, I think you'd probably have to vote and give me the authority to bring people on in that capacity.
So let me just interject a quick question. Did you have the chance to call that gentleman we talked about?
I did. I called the gentleman that leads the EMT and the featured paramedic program at Four Cs, and I was unable to get a hold of them. I'm waiting for a call back. But that was a suggestion Commissioner Conley made, that we reach out to the local local paramedic classes and see if we can, ahead of time line up people that, may be available if and when we, are desperate for bodies to complete our mission, which I think was a
Chief,
great.
if we were to decide to bring in a person, put them on call for an emergency, in my perspective, I'd like to get them lined up before other people start looking for them personally, right?
Yes.
So if we were to do that, let's say we brought in a person, use that for it costs us nothing to do that, correct? To get that person lined up?
Effectively, no, it doesn't. I mean, we are supposed to, have state PAT test and physicals done, but they don't exist anymore. So you're right, it costs us nothing.
So my suggestion here, gentlemen, and everybody, whatever, is that in all frankness, we give the chief the authority to bring in up to 10 people into this capacity and defer to him as to how many he wants to bring in. Because again, if things get to where it could get, we may have a situation where we're looking for people, and I'd rather be looking for people up front before other people grab them than waiting till, the chairs stop moving and there's no place to sit.
So this sounds to me like it's squarely in the four corners of the intent of the bulletin from the state.
Yeah, the state's passed some rules that say anybody with a first responder equivalent certification can operate on an ambulance. We could actually use a first responder in the place of a trained EMT. Again, we're putting people in roles that.
But also the potential cost,
Yes. Oh, yes.
incurred and so forth.
Cost is 100% within that definition as well. Yes. And we're not talking high cost. We don't call people a tremendous amount of money. I think it's, I don't have in front of me, $14 an hour. It's not a lot. These people wouldn't be doing it for the money. That's not why they do it.
So this would be, and Chief, again, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a situation where we're low on people. We have two people in the back of the ambulance that are trained, as an example, and we want to put somebody potentially in the front of the ambulance to drive the thing.
That's a possibility. Yeah, we would obviously try to do some type of minimum training for anybody that's going to drive an ambulance. And we've got a new policy in place too that I didn't discuss, but we've got we put an SOP in place that reduces patient contact. So right now, for any call we have, we're initially having just one provider contact a patient and trying to keep it to that whenever possible. So we're transporting whenever possible with two, anything with a priority 3 or low priority 2. So we're trying not to put two people in the back of the ambulance whenever we possibly can avoid it.
Okay.
Well, I think that to your point, Kevin, having people lined up, enrolled, so to speak, in being available, and at least giving them a sense of our willingness to use them as need demands. It's something better to do sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and get them in the ambulance, get them out on Saturday, some whatever day, not, driving the ambulance around. So, okay, you're checked out on the ambulance. You can drive it when you come in.
Yeah.
What's the cost of doing that?
We would pay them, typically we would pay them hourly if they're doing that. And like I said, I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it's
okay.
$14
So our call, are people, are they essentially exclusive to the district that establishes a relationship with them, potential being called in? I mean, so if someone is interested in such a position, are they exclusive to us versus COM or IANIS?
No, they would not be. We will certainly reach. We're working. The other fire chiefs and I are talking on a regular basis. We've got conference calls every day, and we'll be working with them as well. So we can reach out to West Barnstable Fire, who has on-call people, and if in the event someone's got surplus capacity, we'll certainly share with each other. So no, this is a conversation I will bring up with the fire chiefs when I speak with them on Monday to see, if they've also got, similar thoughts on how we can work together best.
Chief, I saw Ray flip in the screen there. Ray, did you want to offer something to the issue of finances around this?
No, I think that it's, as Adam said, this is clearly an emergency expenditure. And I would, as an observer, reinforce the idea about getting out and getting people lined up as quickly as possible.
All right.
All right. Well, I mean, is this a motion thing from us?
Yes, Kevin? He was waving his hand. I've lost audio.
Yes, can I make a motion?
That's why I asked the question.
I know, Adam, you're the perfect straight man. I would like to make a motion that the chief has the authority to bring on board as many call firefighters as he deems necessary throughout the period of this current emergency.
Could I ask you to modify that motion to specify call EMTs?
Absolutely. Yeah, are we good with an unlimited number, or do I need to put a number on it?
I'm happy to leave it open-ended.
just in case.
Can
So
we
I
make-
would like to make a motion that we give the chief authority to hire as many call EMT emergency responders as he deems necessary during this current emergency.
Can we make it just call people if they're first, okay.
First
You should call
responders, I'll
call
amend
first
that.
responders. Perfect. That's exactly what we need.
Amend the motion to be that the chief has the authority to hire as many call emergency responders as necessary, as he deems necessary during this course of this current emergency.
Second. Any other discussion?
So when we talking about putting the list together, like with the 4Cs, you're going to presumably build a list like the practice squads in the NFL or something. Is that the idea, Chief?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We'll take a look, see what's available, find the most, the most trained, the most qualified, and see if we can put a reasonable number together that hopefully will be available when we need them. So.
Okay, that was just a question. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
You can call the vote if you wish, Chairman.
Any other discussion? Absent that, I call the vote. Pisano in favor.
Conley,
Zace, in favor.
You got it, Chief. Any other matters we need to discuss?
That's all I got.
Either of you have any more?
Nope.
I have a motion
Please,
to adjourn.
Second.
second the motion. Pisano in favor.
Conley,
Zace.
thanks, guys. Have a good night. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.